Hello, everyone, and welcome to an ESI how-to presentation. Today, we will be covering how to approve an I-9 in our new onboarding system. By now, most of you have been upgraded to the new system, and we're hearing a lot of positive feedback, which we're absolutely thrilled about. We're hoping this presentation will answer some of your lingering questions, and we also want to offer up some tips that we believe could come in handy. Let's get started. We're going to start with probably our most useful tip. The system works best on either Google, Firefox, or Safari browsers. We've noticed that the onboarding experience isn't at its best on Internet Explorer. In fact, if you happen to run into any issues such as forms not loading on Internet Explorer, Explorer is more than likely the culprit. Switching browsers to one of the preferred ones we've just mentioned will likely always solve form loading issues. This tip applies to both the employee and manager experience. Before an employee can begin their onboarding, you, the manager, will need to enter the new hire into the system. This process has not changed. The one thing that has changed is that your new hire will not be visible in your employees list or assigned an employee ID until their onboarding has been completed. So this means you won't be able to reset passwords or edit the profile until they're visible in your employees list. Another thing you'll want to keep in mind, double check the entry of the employee's email address. You'll want to ensure that it was entered correctly, otherwise they won't receive an onboarding email. Once you save the new hire's profile, there's no going back, but you do have a couple of options. Call or email your HR coordinator to update the email address and resend the onboarding email, or simply have your new hire head on over to our website and register in the employee portal to begin the onboarding process. As mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, today we will focus on the I-9 portion of the onboarding process for both the employee and I-9 approver. The Form I-9 provides proof to the employer and the government of the new hire's eligibility to work in the United States. Please keep in mind that without a complete Form I-9, the new hire is not considered an employee and thus will not receive a paycheck. The onboarding process begins for the new hire with completion of Section 1 of the I-9 form. It is very important to remember that Section 1 has to be completed by the new hire no later than the first day of employment, and as the employer, you must complete Section 2 within the new hire's first 3 days of employment. On Section 1, there are a few things that the employee must provide: full legal name, current address to include street number, street name, apartment number, or letter if applicable, date of birth, and they'll need to check the appropriate box to indicate citizenship or immigration status. Here's something to keep in mind. The new hire does not need to provide their Social Security number on the form unless you as the employer participate in the E-Verify program. Once the new hire begins to complete the employee information, it is important to remember that all the fields are required with the exception of the Social Security number field. If the field does not apply, it should be completed with NA for not applicable. Here's a tip. NA must be typed as shown with a capital N, slash, and a capital A. Otherwise, the new hire will not be able to move forward. The next screen will bring the new hire to the Attestation of Citizenship or Immigration Status. It is very important that the new hire selects the correct status. Entering their status incorrectly would prevent the I-9 approver from completing Section 2 of the I-9 correctly. For example, if the employee selects the first option, a citizen of the United States, yet presents a permanent resident card, the I-9 approver will not be given the option to enter information for a permanent resident card. The correct status for new hire that presents a permanent resident card would be a lawful permanent resident. Should the new hire make the wrong selection, please contact your HR coordinator for assistance. The next screen, Prepare and/or Translator Certification. This section is pretty straightforward. The employee will need to select the appropriate choice. Did they have a prepare and/or translator help with completing the I-9 form? Yes or no? This next section will bring the employee to the Review and Complete I-9 form. At this point, the employee will have the opportunity to review their completed form and make any necessary corrections. Once the employee is confident that all the fields were accurately completed, clicking on Submit and Continue would be their final step in completing the I-9 form. The employee will then continue on through the onboarding process to complete and individually submit sections such as tax information, direct deposit, and various acknowledgments. The employee's final step in the onboarding process is to submit the entire onboarding workflow. Once this is done, the employee will see an onboarding completed screen and will receive an email that reads, "Congrats, your new hire forms have been submitted." The message will not appear and the email will not generate if the employee is pending items. Please contact your HR coordinator with any issues or questions. This is the conclusion of the employee side of the I-9 form. We have now arrived to the I-9 manager approval process. Here are some things to keep in mind before you get started. Make sure you are using one of the preferred browsers we spoke about earlier in the presentation, Google, Chrome, or Safari. You'll want to make sure that your pop-up blockers are off, and you'll want to have your employee's I-9 documents handy. Once the employee has completed Section 1 of the I-9 approver will receive an email prompting them to begin the I-9 approval process. Remember, the employer portion, otherwise known as Section 2 of Form I-9, must be completed within the first 3 days of the employee's hire date to be compliant. Here's a tip regarding the email. The email only indicates that the employee has completed Section 1 of the I-9, not necessarily the entire onboarding workflow. Once the I-9 approver receives the email, they will need to log into the manager portal to access the pending approvals. Once logged in, click on the check mark next to the envelope icon at the top right of the homepage. You'll notice that this page is broken up into 2 sections. Your pending approval will first be found on the bottom half section titled Approvals Pending Available to You. Click on the I-9 Section 2 hyperlink. The hyperlink will then migrate to the top half of the page titled Approvals Pending Assigned to You. It's important to remember that once you have assigned an approval to yourself, no one else with access to approve the I-9 for this employee will be able to do so. Clicking on the hyperlink will bring up a box with the option to grab the I-9. Grabbing the I-9 will give you the opportunity to review the employee Section 1 before moving forward with the approval. Once the form downloads, you may notice NA in the fields of Section 2. This is expected, as you, the I-9 approver, have not completed the I-9 Section 2. If all looks to be in order, click Next. Entering the employee-provided documents. Here's a few things to remember. Employees must present unexpired original documentation that shows the employer their identity and employment authorization. Your employees choose which documentation to present. The employee must present one document from List A or one document from List B in combination with one document from List C. You'll want to ensure that any documentation your employee presents is original and on the Form I-9 lists of acceptable documents or is an acceptable receipt. Physically examine each document to determine if it reasonably appears to be genuine and if it relates to the employee presenting it. The next screen, titled Additional Information, can be used to notate additional information required for Form I-9, such as additional documents that certain non-immigrant employees may present, employee termination dates and form retention dates, E-Verify case numbers, which, by the way, may also be entered in the margin or attached as a separate sheet per E-Verify requirements, and of course, your chosen business process. And any other comments or notations necessary for the employer's business process. Certification screen. You'll want to check the electronic signature box and complete any blank fields that did not populate. By checking this box, you are attesting to examining the new hire's documents, that the documents appear genuine, the documents belong to the new hire, and that the new hire is authorized to work in the United States. Your following screen will give you the opportunity to review the completed I-9. Once you have reviewed the completed I-9, click Submit. Once submitted, you will have the option to print or download the I-9 for your records. Congratulations! You have successfully completed an I-9 approval. We want to thank you for watching an ESI how-to presentation. And I also want to remind you that your HR team is just a phone call or email away. Reach out to us with any questions, issues, or concerns. Thank you.